We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet to share these conversations on the Vegan Compass podcast.
We extend our respect to elders past, present, and emerging, as well as any of our listeners and guests. Hello, and welcome to the Vegan Compass podcast, unveiling truths, inspiring change.
We're your hosts, Rick Allport and Mackenzie Cross.
In each episode, we bring you meaningful conversations with vegan changemakers that remind us progress is possible, even in a world full of bad news.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Vegan Compass podcast. As always, we are thrilled to have you with us. We have a great conversation lined up tonight, and it's a topic we haven't covered yet on the podcast. So we're going to be talking about Greyhound racing, and we have Jemma from Free the Hounds, who's going to help us dive into all the nitty-gritty details. But before we get into that, how are you tonight, Rick?
I am very well, thank you. It's been a crazy day with paperwork and everything, but I'm actually just sitting here and chuckling to myself because it's usually you're the one who's cold and I'm the one who's hot. And I'm sitting here in the Vegan Compass hoodie and you're in a T-shirt. Like, what's going on here? This is a strange world we're in.
I've been running around all day, so I'm feeling warm.
Okay, fair enough. Well, yes, I'm looking forward to this one. And Greyhound, racing is a huge issue. And I guess I do expect us to get a number of trolls in the comments, but hey, bring it on. But yeah, really looking forward to this because I did meet, some of the team at Animal Rights Forum, and they are so passionate about this, and quite rightly so. We've got to stop this horrific, what they term sport, but it's just a horrible abuse industry.
Yeah.
So let's get underway. And Jemma, my first question to you is, who are you and what do you do?
Thank you, Rick, and thanks, Mackenzie. I'm so happy to be here. I am Jemma Fittock. I'm the Vice President of Free the Hounds. I am also a recovery room nurse, and before that I was in social work over in Canada and also disability services sector. So I've sort of been working, I have a long career background of working with vulnerable people. At the moment I'm with Free the Hounds in my volunteer capacity. I also produce our podcast, which is called Talking Couch Potatoes. And I've volunteered in various other roles. So yeah, that's who I am. As far as my veganism, I've been a vegan since 2018. I was actually vegetarian since the 1990s, and over that time, I lived in Canada for a lot of that time, and I had a friend over there who was vegetarian as well, and she met me in Melbourne in 2018. My friend Chantel, shout out to her, and she just gently pointed out to me how she had gone vegan and where I was going wrong. So I didn't even have to watch the documentaries. I trusted her. I knew what she was talking about, and also being in Melbourne at the time, savouring all the delicious vegan food that was there, I just realised how easy it is and how possible it is, and I no longer had my wine and cheese platters. Well, I did. It's just vegan cheese.
That's amazing. What a great friend to guide you gently in that direction.
And what a great city to be guided in. I mean, Melbourne really is the vegan capital of Australia.
Yeah.
I mean, we like to say we got stuff in Sydney, but no, Melbourne still is the vegan capital.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about Free the Hounds. So where are you based? How long have you been operating? And I guess your focus as an organisation?
Free the Hounds is a grassroots advocacy group that was sort of formed back in 2015. So over that time, the volunteers were adopters of rescued greyhounds, and they were sort of looking at the fact that it's almost like an idea of enabling the industry by taking on all their dogs. And they sort of thought, wait a minute, we really kind of need some sort of advocacy group that is focusing on actually ending greyhound racing. So that is the ultimate goal of Free the Hounds, is to phase out greyhound racing here in WA. We only look at WA because every state is very different. Every jurisdiction has different rules, has different legislations. And so therefore there is several advocacy groups and rescue groups looking across Australia at scrutinising the industry. We look at all the stewards' reports. We watch every race. We have a look at all the injury statistics, and we track those injured dogs. The other thing we do is we focus on public awareness. So we bring this to light. We expose the death and injury rates. We expose the little scandals that go on. And then the other main focus is political engagement, lobbying our government, petitions, media campaigns, and protests, and a few fundraisers along the way.
Yes. It's it's an amazing thing. I think you can't find too many more dedicated volunteers than the Greyhound volunteers. It's incredible the work that you do. But for you personally, what first opened up your eyes about the plight of greyhounds, and how did that motivate you to take a role with Free the Hounds?
So I had adopted 2 rescue greyhounds, Bunster and Bo, Bunny McBunster and Bo Boy. And I was just enjoying having these lovely hounds in my home. And of course, my algorithm on social media was starting to change to everything greyhound. And I did see a volunteer shout out from Free the Hounds. They did a webinar that I attended, and I was just blown away by the amount of legwork that has already been done. Like you were saying, Rick, the sheer dedication of these volunteers to put hours and hours of time into scrutinising all these stewards' reports was really just so impressive to me. And alongside of that, it was impossible to ignore. It's like the whole veganism thing. Once that switch goes on, you just can't not sort of go back. And for me, I have these 2 animals. I might as well have 2 little dragons at home. Like, I just couldn't believe these creatures with big teeth and big claws that were snuggling into me, and I got to help protect. And every time I looked into their eyes, I knew what was going on in the background. So my first volunteer assignment was actually at a market, and I had my clipboard and I was collecting signatures for our petition in 2022. And it just suddenly struck me how much I enjoyed it. And I really loved connecting with people and telling them what I had learned about the racing industry. And then the other thing that really struck me was how many people don't realise it's still happening. Because unless you go to a TAB or a sports bar and bet on dogs, the races are kind of hidden. There's not a whole lot of people, apart from participants of the industry and their families and friends, maybe, that go along, and maybe the odd Christmas party at the cheap buffet restaurant. So it's really sort of hidden. It's not in mainstream at all. So that's kind of what motivated me, that public awareness and pushing for that.
I think when you have your own rescue greyhounds at home as well, that connection is so apparent, and you can't imagine what they've been through as ex-racing greyhounds, and knowing how many others are experiencing that as well. It's a whole other emotional connection that's very strong.
Well, what I think is always interesting, and you sort of alluded to this, people say, oh, greyhound racing is so popular and it's a big money spinner and we've got thousands of people working in the industry, and if you shut down greyhound racing, thousands of people will be out of work. It's like the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard. Because, you see footage of greyhound racing and there's hardly a person in the stands. It's like they say, oh, we've got packed crowds. No, what a load of crap. We've got the footage. We know that's rubbish.
Maybe once or twice a year when you've got like the
big,
Magic Millions
race,
or whatever. But yeah. So this is a lot of work, volunteer work that you're doing with Free the Hounds. And as you mentioned, on top of that, you're also a full-time registered nurse. So how are you managing the physical and emotional toll of this workload?
I've had a very long career in advocating for people. I've always been in that sort of advocacy space. But the main thing is I love my job as a nurse. I really absolutely love it. So that really helps. I'm lucky enough in the recovery room that it's not a very heavy manual workload for me, and I'm doing one-on-one nursing in an area where people are really vulnerable, coming out of anaesthetic. They've had surgery, they're in pain, they feel really sick. So to be able to help those people is actually, it does actually fill my cup. I've also learnt through the social work that I've done that I can be very, very resourceful. And alongside of that, I have a really supportive family and network here in Perth. The vegan community is really lovely. My husband and I take regular breaks. My husband works in very tough, he is a clinical nurse specialist with adolescent self-harming kids. So we must take regular breaks in order to, again, just for our mental well-being. I love connecting with nature. I love connecting with animals, and I love connecting with like-minded people. So that's a really important component of what I make sure I put aside. And like, for example, volunteering at a busy bee at a sanctuary, I don't get to cuddle with sheep or goats very often. So that reminder, so it's not just greyhounds for me, but that reminder is again something that fills my cup. But on a daily basis, just seeing the wagging tail of my dogs when I come home, when I take him for a walk, that's just really what fills my heart, and being with them. And unfortunately, about 3 months ago, we lost our girl Bunny, and it was right at the Animal Rights Forum, actually. I had to cut that short, and I came home and spent a few days with her, and I think her memory is and all the rest of the hounds and animals, it's just what keeps me going. I'm never going to stop. I can't not do this.
I'm just amazed that you just sort of very discreetly slipped in there that you do sort of work also at a sanctuary and helping in other areas. Like, I'm sorry, there's only 24 hours in a day. How do you actually fit all this in?
I don't do that regularly. I do try to do it on a busy bee. Like, sometimes I have busy bees. So I have been to a couple, and it just when I can, if the weekend's free or something, I'm like, yes, I'll just go for a few hours and just connect with those animals, sweep up their poop or do whatever I have to do just to be close to them and remind me that it's not just the greyhounds. Once greyhound racing is finished, which it will be eventually, it's a matter of time. I'm on to the next thing. There's never going to be a point in my life where I won't be fighting for animals in some capacity.
And I think this is what people need to realise too, that yes, being vegan is something that's great. I love the fact that people are vegan, but taking it a step further is either being a vegan activist, an animal rights activist, or actually getting out and helping and volunteering in sanctuaries. I think that is what really connects you back with why we're vegan in the first place, why we're activists in the first place. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of why we're here, because now we're going to get down and dirty in the industry. So the greyhound industry, the greyhound industry does hide a lot of their stuff behind the shiny marketing, all the glitz and glamour, and they get government subsidies to, of course, push out all this glitz and glamour. But really, what is the reality about the systematic welfare issues that these poor dogs face daily?
Yeah, you're right, Rick, with there is literally shiny, glossy reports that they hand to the government. The government looks through it and goes, yep, that looks great. And Free the Hounds and also Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds have looked at this. We've had economic analysts looking at it and debunked a lot of what they have used. We call it dodgy methodology to come up with their numbers. But in answer to your question, where do we start? So if we look at breeding, they're breeding as many pups as they possibly can within the rules of racing. And that we know that, if a dame whelps 11 pups, maybe one or two of them are going to be a successful racing dog. So what goes on with the rest of them? They're pushed out and they become a burden on the community, who is expected to rehome them and pay for them for the rest of their lives, if they even make it there. Another part of the breeding, they've only just stopped the surgical artificial insemination, which is an actual incision in the dame's belly and surgically putting in the semen into her uterus. So it is an invasive procedure. That only just was, all jurisdictions were told to stop that just in January of this year. However, for years, vets have been saying that it is unnecessary and it is very painful for these poor dogs. But it whelps more pups. So this is why the industry, just last week actually, one of the WA trainers here was on the Greyhound Recorder article saying how irate he is that his dames are no longer producing as many pups. And in fact, one of them didn't produce any pups, yet he had sold one of these non-existing pups for $12,000 or $14,000, and how irate he is about this change in legislation. And a leading vet also said the same thing. So a leading racing industry vet. So yeah, that's just breeding. We're
Scraping
now
the surface, yeah.
there's genetic issues. My girl died of osteosarcoma. There's a genetic component of that. Yet they're not breeding that out of the dogs. They're just breeding dogs for how quickly they race. There's the kenneling and the woeful conditions. Not all of them are in woeful conditions, but just kenneling in itself, these dogs sitting around waiting for the 1 day a week or 2 days a week that they get to race, or the 45 minutes that they're out for training and then they're back in their kennels, just solitary kennels. And that's how they live their whole, for years and years. The lack of preventative care for their dental, that they're not going to worry about sort of preventing dental decay that's going to happen in their later years, because by the time they're 5, they've finished their racing career. So then there's the live baiting. We've heard about the Making a Killing expose by Four Corners back in 2015. That sparked the New South Wales government at the time to put a ban on greyhound racing. That's still happening. Just earlier this year, there was a trainer that was penalised for using live possums. So it is still happening. It's just whether or not they're getting caught. Let's look at dog exports to countries of concern. So we've found dogs from Australia that have been sold to underground betting rings in China for over $200,000 each because they're such successful racers. And Australia has just sent them to Ireland, because that's legal, to send an unsexed racing dog to Ireland where it's legal to gamble on them. But then Ireland's just sent it back to China so that these places can use good Australian stock for their underground gambling ring.
Wow, there's so many loopholes that I didn't realize as well.
It's like layers of a very rotten onion. I haven't like doping. We haven't even started to talk about the serious inherent risk of injury and death because of the track injuries. Over racing dogs, just little, they've got a broken toe, and then they've got a broken tail, and then they've got a sore shoulder, and then they just slowly are breaking these dogs because every time, well, in Western Australia, every time they're raced, they get a participation fee. So if a trainer has one really good successful dog and 4 that are like, he's going to fill his trailer with 5 dogs and just race the dogs so that they get their participation fee. And we do have breeding bonuses as well here in Western Australia. If you whelp puppies here in Western Australia and race them here and they win, you get a breeding bonus. So this is all government subsidised.
This is all taxpayers' money. It's like people don't realise this, and of course, the industry wants to say, "Oh well, we subsidise ourselves. You know, we have the money to keep going." But no, it's a load of crap, because I remember being in Queensland and we were fighting to stop a Greyhound track, and they were given some obscene amount of money by the Queensland government to redevelop this Greyhound track. And you just go, well, if you're so self-subsidising, why aren't you paying for it yourself? You know, it's just that constant lie. And I think the thing that got me into the Greyhound area first was I watched a race, and this poor Greyhound, I still tear up when I think about it now, stopped with a break to the hock, I think rear hock or something, and just stopped and froze and was looking around for somebody just to come and hold him and, you know, just give him comfort. And they just killed him, you know, and you just go, what sort of inhumane person could do that? But to them, it's just like, yeah, every day, oh, well, that's happened. Yeah, just kill him. Did you know that most of our listeners aren't subscribed yet?
If you're enjoying the conversation and believe these stories deserve to be heard, make sure you're subscribed.
It's a free and easy way to help us grow and keep these conversations going.
Because they're not going to make money anymore. They don't. Yeah, it's sad. You mentioned the safer tracks there, Rick, and that was one of my next questions. So we've heard from the industry, and I think the Queensland track was one of the going to be the straight track, one of the safest tracks ever. So despite the industry claiming that the tracks are getting safer, whatever other excuses they have, we're still seeing these horrific injuries and deaths on the track. So can you tell us more about the physical toll of those racing industries?
Straighter tracks certainly do have less injuries than oval tracks, and the reason why is because but they still have injuries and deaths, just less. And the reason why is because if you think of these dogs coming out of boxes, they're coming from a still start, the boxes open and they sprint out. So straight away, a lot of their, claws and stuff just to get that speed to start. That's where you get your little broken toes and tendons in the paws. But then as a corner comes around, they're chasing the lure, they're all merging into that corner. So, of course, they're colliding, they're checking on each other, they're falling, taking tumbles. And a lot of your listeners have probably seen the footage that you see, which looks absolutely horrific. So the actual injuries, we've got right hock fractures. So hock is their ankle. Hind leg. So that is often fractured because of that, the torsion and the way that anti-clockwise track goes. And then the left wrist or foreleg fractures is the other part or the other part of their body that really takes a lot of the strain of racing in those oval tracks. So, but then the other thing is when the race is finished, there's a catching pen. So we often find that dogs get into the catching pen and then they also collide on the rails as they're racing. They collide with the dogs in the catching pen. So that the whole nature of racing itself has inherent risk. It is predictable outcome for these dogs to get broken and have to be euthanized due to their injuries. It's inevitable.
Well, I remember just going back to the straight track that was in Queensland, and they were doing all the trials before opening it to the public, going, oh, this is so safe, this is so safe. But in the trial period, they had a number of deaths on a straight track in the trial period while saying this is so much safer.
And then they still opened it.
And I mean, this is brings me to the next question. And I think we've kind of answered it in our conversation, but I'll ask it anyway. So why do you believe that welfare reform is not enough and the only ethical way through this is to just ban this horrific industry once and forever?
Yeah, you're right, Rick. It's the inherent risk, the inevitability of dogs being injured and killed because of the track, the nature of racing, high speeds, many dogs. But we've seen reform over the decades, and we've seen how it is not, there's no clean-up of the industry happening. So despite these reforms, the reforms that we speak about are often reactive and due to pressure from advocacy groups like Free the Hounds and like Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds. Because and these are people that are volunteers that are volunteering their time, where they're independent overseers. So and we've seen changes being made, and still and all the scandals are still occurring as well. So it's not just the death and injury, it's the behind the scenes stuff. The regulations and rules of racing here in WA are managed by Racing and Wagering WA, and we're in a unique situation here in WA in that the WA government owns the TAB, which is the betting agency, and Racing and Wagering WA manage the TAB as well as the 3 codes of racing, so thoroughbreds, harness, and greyhound racing. So they manage the TAB and ensure maximising the gambling revenue from that. They make the rules and regulations, and they enforce the penalties as well as look after the welfare of the greyhounds. Now, the conflict of interests that lie in that space are huge. And so really one of the reforms is an independent regulatory body that looks after the welfare of greyhounds. However, we've just seen Greyhound Welfare and Integrity Commission in New South Wales, the watchdog there that already exists. They've just been in the news for horrific accusations of workplace bullying, sexual harassment. I mean, these are the people that are delivering the disciplinary actions against the people that are breaking the rules. So who are they? Even if independent regulators do exist, they're still open to this sort of corruption. That's always going to happen when there's millions and millions and millions of dollars, because we have to be honest, this is very economically significant. Gambling revenue is huge. Attendance at races isn't huge for greyhounds. Greyhound racing itself, the wagering is declining, but we're still talking about millions of dollars. So, yeah, that's why a phase out is the only option.
Yeah, absolutely. There really is so many problems. There's just no way to solve them other than to end the industry. But
Well, I think this is where the AJP policy of having a animal protection, independent office of animal protection, not welfare, animal protection, is the only way we can go forward to actually start getting rid of these industries and, exposing all the rubbish that is actually happening. And, hats off to you guys. You are exposing so much stuff. And, of course, all the other groups across Australia and, of course, overseas. And then you just get the industry who fight back and say, oh, it's all lies. And it's like, no, it's not lies. We have it all here. Here's the evidence. Anyway.
So it does get very frustrating because we get all of our data from the industry itself, from the stewards' reports. So, yeah.
yeah, so, well, there has been some good news. I mean, Australia is one of the very few places left in the world where greyhound racing is still legal. And recently, Scotland and Wales have banned greyhound racing. So can you maybe paint a brief picture for us about the scale of the industry in Australia and maybe why we're in a unique position here?
Yeah, so we've got these great, and New Zealand as well is phasing it or is in the phase out period. But in Australia, we've got 60 tracks around. They're closing. Some are consolidating in New South Wales as we speak. But there is lots going on in the greyhound racing world right now. And like I said, we're talking about millions of dollars in revenue, but also millions of dollars in government subsidies or funding or money for tracks. Like you said, Rick, the taxpayers in Queensland paid out $44 million of I think it's almost $100 million the queue cost. There's land tax exemptions that they get. There's betting taxes that are given back to them to prop it up. The Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds has really great resources, and I'd encourage your listeners to have a look, both at Free the Hounds website and Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds. There's what they call a blood money map, and it shows what each state taxpayer dollars and government funding was given over the 22-23 financial year. So to give you a bit of a scale, we've got, of those 60 tracks here in WA, we've got 3. New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, they're very big. There's a lot of different clubs that run greyhound racing and get all that funding sort of separately. Here in WA, it's very different. We have no club as such, but we've got the Western Australian Greyhound Breeder Owner Trainer Association, which actually sits in our government too. So they're paid employees of the Western Australian state government. But they manage all those 3 tracks. The greyhound racing industry in New Zealand is a very similar size to the Western Australian greyhound racing. I don't want to call it an industry because it isn't an industry. We have less than 60 people with an ABN here that claim it as a livelihood. So we're not bringing down an industry. We're bringing down maybe 2,000, 2,500 participants who are mostly hobbyists that are getting these subsidies and these breeding bonuses and racing their greyhounds for the prize money that is all shuffled through Racing and Wagering WA from the gambling revenue, as well as all those gambling taxes that the government is giving back to them to prop it up.
I'm sitting here and it's something that's always bugged me because I remember years ago I was the MC for the March for the Murdered Millions in Queensland, and probably the first death threat I ever got was from the greyhound, somebody in the greyhound area.
They love sending out their death threats.
Oh, I know. And I got threatened with being beaten up and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, yeah, bring it on. Like, seriously, you're going to try it? Go for it.
Yeah, Georgie Purcell cops the brunt of that in Victoria as well.
Oh, no, she does. But then I just think they say one of their arguments is, oh, but it's just a hobby, and it's we do it because for the love of it. But if you are earning an income and you are paying people, it's not a hobby. That's like a hobby is just something you do on the side. Greyhound, is not a hobby to these people. They're getting paid so much to do this. So, yeah, that's just total and utter bullshit.
Those hobbyists, when they do win the prize money, it's not taxed.
Wow.
So what you're looking at is a side hustle, and the fact that it's not taxed is what makes it very appealing to these people. Everybody
Oh,
wants to make a little side cash that the taxman doesn't get hold of.
That's crazy.
that is just sick. That is absolutely sick. It's like, get a hobby, go basket weaving or something, like sell it on Etsy and
Or
just
you run around the track.
Yeah, this is what I'd like to see. Okay, if you want to bet on a being running, bet on humans. Like, make them run, make them do the stuff. All these greyhound trainers, shove them in the boxes and make them burst out of the box and run around a stupid track. Anyway, this one, greyhound gets me just so angry.
I feel like I've just been sort of laughing and smiling the whole time because it's all just so absurd.
It is. It's totally absurd.
Yeah.
But getting back on track, yeah, that seems really strange to say that in this conversation. But so Free the Hounds works very closely with major organisations like Animals Australia, who we love, but all the way down to grassroots rescue groups. So how crucial is the ecosystems of allies when it comes to keeping the pressure on stopping this greyhound industry?
As the years have gone by since I've been in Free the Hounds, I've just seen such a huge ability to connect with right around the nation. So different groups just have different strengths and also different audiences. So we have allegiances with dog refuges. So, for example, and the reason why is because all these greyhounds coming out of the industry are competing for the homes that the other rescue animals are waiting for as well. So it's really creating a competition in an already overburdened a part of animal rescue. So, but using Animals Australia as an example, they've been amazingly helpful. And recently we had a economic report in WA that identified that the costs outweigh the benefits. Just in this year alone, they're looking at about $36 million. So, and when there's a loss, which racing and wagering have recorded a loss in recent years, then it's the government that picks up the tab. So these costs are not identified, of course, in those glossy magazine type annual reports that are given to the government. They are costs like gambling harm, the costs of the welfare harm and the overburdened other dog shelters, volunteer time, fundraising time, that sort of thing. Inefficient land use. Actually, sorry, I'll take that bit out because they don't really know about that volunteer time. That part isn't, we're really not sure of that. So that couldn't be counted. But it's the gambling harm, the welfare harm, inefficient land use of these tracks especially like here in Perth. Cannington is quite an inner city area, and so is Mandra's got a big track down there as well. And then the diversion of those taxes that are going to prop that industry up, where they could actually be going. They could be going to housing, they could be going to education, to infrastructure, to healthcare. So the other sort of allies we have are our rescue groups. So partnering with them to promote the adoption of greyhounds. And really, it's because greyhounds themselves are actually what I always say, our greatest marketing tool. because I go out with my greyhound and people are interested. People talk to you about it. So the more greyhounds we get out there, and the more people like me who just got a greyhound and then went, wait a minute, what's going on here? That become really passionate advocates for ending the greyhound racing industry. So it does do this full spectrum from Animals Australia and RSPCA right through to the greyhounds themselves.
It's actually really funny. I just thought about the fact that by the industry having to rehome greyhounds, they're actually shooting themselves in the foot a bit because, as you said, then the people who adopt greyhounds are probably making that connection with the life that they lived before. So,
Exactly. Yeah, we say it on our podcast a lot that it was kind of the death knell was that the fact that they had to start rehoming them instead of just getting rid of them the way they used to. They had to start rehoming them, and that was the beginning of the end for them.
yeah.
I remember the first time I encountered an adopted greyhound. I was actually at a meeting for AJP in one of the AJP members' home. And I'm sort of standing there talking to people, and all of a sudden I just felt this weight on my leg. And I'm like, what is this? And this beautiful greyhound had just come up to me and just leant into me.
Aww.
And I thought, I can't move. Like, this is it. This is where I'm going to be talking to the team for the rest of the night. It didn't move for ages, and I'm just standing there patting and just the most beautiful, beautiful animals ever. And I love the name of the podcast that you have, the Couch Potato Podcast. So we will put in the show notes a link to that podcast.
Yes. And also the blood money map that you mentioned. I'll put that link in the show notes for people to reference to.
Yeah. Anything we can think of, we'll put in there.
Fabulous. I should also mention with the advocacy groups that we've partnered with, Blue the Grey was a beautiful blue greyhound rescue, and his adopted mum popped him on Instagram. He became quite the sensation, and it was very, very sad when he got sick, and she did an amazing fundraiser and was able to just to give to animal rescue or to greyhound rescue, but in fact raised so much money, was able to start a charity, and from there Free the Hounds have received a grant from them that we were able to put toward a database that allowed us to really track these dogs, track the injuries, whether they were retired from racing, whether they were rehomed, whether they just disappeared, or whether they were used for breeding, and that's been really, really helpful for Free the Hounds. But also, I want to say thank you to you guys for the Animal Rights Forum, because the first one we all went to in 2024, we actually tacked on a National Greyhound Group workshop day, and we all met face to face for the first time, including Grey 2K USA Worldwide, Christine and Carrie, as well as Georgie Purcell. We had amazing rock stars of the animal liberation movement in that room, and that was a real boost for us to start really connecting nationally and helping each other, because it's so different in each states, but really helping each other with specific strategies. And
Well,
amazing.
You brought up Grey 2K, and I met Kerry first back in 2024 and again in 2026, and I really do want to get Kerry on. He is just fabulous, and his knowledge is amazing. But yes, you have partnered with Grey 2K now. So what insights are you getting from the global leverage, and what have you gained from this international partnership?
They have been around since 2001, so they've been around for 25 years, and they've effectively shut down 47 of 49 greyhound tracks in the US. So they're definitely the ones to look to as to how to do it. And they have also really been so generous in sharing how they use those strategies, because for them it was all trial and error. There was no one to look to there. So they've got it on their website. There's 5 key strategies. So passing laws, exposing cruelty, defeating attempts to prop up the industry, persistent pressure, and voting at the ballot box. So all those strategies are what they used state by state by state, and also really starting to pull in the lawmakers. So that's something that we've learnt from them, and that's something that we do on a regular basis is our political lobbying, our political advocacy, getting in touch with our MPs, just getting in there and doing those little pushing that dial bit by bit. So that is one of the things they've done. They also very famously closed down the Canadrome in Macau. So that was very big media coverage of that. Macau Canadrome was known as the most dangerous and dreadful. It was hell on earth for these dogs. They actually lived there and raced there, and basically it was like if you don't win, you die. So thousands of Australians dogs were shipped there over the late 1990s, I think. Somewhere around there. But that was closed down in 2018, and we received 20 of those dogs back here in Australia, and they're our Canadrome survivors. Grey 2K has also helped us with surveys, public polling surveys, and we've gotten professional independent polling survey on public opinion on greyhound racing, which has come back overwhelmingly in favour of a phase out. Well, you're going to have him on your podcast, so I won't go too much more. But they've got a great TED talk as well if you look them up.
Hey, a quick break from the episode to let you know that the Vegan Compass podcast now has merch.
You can finally rep the show with our new tees, hoodies, tote bags, and mugs.
It's the perfect way to support the show and spark a few conversations.
Just head to our website or check the link in the show notes to grab yours today.
All right, back to the episode. Amazing. Yeah, Carrie is great. I met him for the first time at the Animal Rights Forum in February. Actually accidentally gate crashed your Greyhound team dinner at the Chippo. It was packed. My husband and I were looking for a table, and I hear Mel saying, Mackenzie. And you guys had a couple of seats at your table, and I got to chat to Carrie and his team. So that was great. So yes, we definitely need to have Carrie on. But while we've got you, we wanted to do more of a deep dive into WA. And you've recently had this crucial parliamentary inquiry. So what is the significance of this Greyhound welfare inquiry, and what were your core messages to the committee?
An inquiry is something that we've been fighting for a long time. There's never been an inquiry into the WA greyhound racing industry. All of our petitions were pretty much to call for that. We had all these points on the petition, but having an inquiry is what would push those points. And our 2022 petition didn't do any good. We pushed it through the Estimates Committee, which is a Legislative Council committee. They had a look at it and recommended an inquiry into greyhound racing. And meanwhile, we did that was back in 2024. And meanwhile, we did another petition. We got over 26,000 signatures. And then last year, we were told that they're going to open an inquiry. So it's been a lot of hard work. So that's significant. So it was a great win. But our core messages were the conflict of interest that exists, the lack of transparency. So we have to follow up a lot of our dogs. We follow up through freedom of information requests, which here in WA they do have to respond to. We looked at the rehoming burden. And how there's no money coming through those rehoming agencies that don't have to sort of stick by the rules of racing and wagering in order to receive any funding. The death and injury rate methodology is just so dodgy. Like they don't count individual dogs dying, they count how many starters. So if one dog is racing 10 times in a year and gets injured, then that's just a 10% chance of injury. Whereas you look at 1,600 dogs that were raced, say, last year, and 600 of them got injuries. It's a much higher individual racing rate. So it's a really clever way to dilute those statistics. So we want them to look at that as well. Just the suffering that is inevitable, and the fact that it's for gambling, which is a social harm in and of itself. And also the public opinion, it's losing its social license. Most people out there don't want it. So why, for a handful of people, we're putting all these millions of dollars in, when really, when we want to look at the economics of it, it is actually losing money due to these problems.
Well, this is something that, okay, I'm just taking a little sidetrack here. We're pouring so many millions of taxpayers' dollars into a death industry, but we're not housing the homeless.
Yeah.
And this is what blows me away, that we are wasting all this money to prop up a dying industry. And we have so many thousands of people who do not have proper shelter. It's just, we've got it all screwed up. Governments across Australia, no matter what party is ruling or what party is in opposition, they all seem to push to the same outcome, which somehow that's got to change. It's just ridiculous that this is where we're going. But we're now in May, and the community is eagerly awaiting some sort of final report from these hearings. Do you have a good feeling about the outcome, or can you tell us, what is your plan after the outcome?
I have a good feeling about the outcome in that it's going to be better. It's going to have to be better. We really have to wait and see what the recommendations are. But the submissions that were put into the inquiry were over 5,000, which is unprecedented. The Drake report in New South Wales had 1,600, in comparison. So we are waiting to respond to see what the recommendations are. We are hoping like hell that it's to phase out in 3 years. We believe is just enough time to safely rehome all the dogs in a very phased out, planned, methodical manner. But all the evidence is now in the hands of the lawmakers, and Free the Hounds put in over 300-page document for the submission with all the evidence we've collated and all the latest, and we're still writing letters to them to update them because day by day these things change. So it's a long game. In the animal animal welfare and animal rights movement, everything changes so slowly until suddenly it might not. So we just have to wait and see. New Zealand had 4 inquiries before the government said, okay, that's enough. So we're really hoping it's not going to be like that. But and South Australia, they've got a deadline in July to meet all the recommendations from their inquiry that they only recently had. So we're watching what happens in Tasmania, of course. Tasmania is huge. It's literally down to weeks away. I'm not sure, but it could be, so we're all waiting with hope in our hearts that Tasmania, South Australia, Western Australia, and then domino.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much potential for there to be a massive cascade effect. But I just want to recognise the absolute amount of work that has gone into getting a parliamentary inquiry in WA. And when you're in a volunteer role, there's so much just slogging along. You probably don't have the time to reflect on how far you've come. So I hope you're really proud of all of your efforts, because it's absolutely mammoth. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I've got an amazing team that I work with. Like I can't speak highly of them enough. And I think one of them's just walked into the room. She's going to try and be quiet and shy, I think.
Who have we
But
got?
Mel Harrison, the president of
Oh,
Talking Couch Potatoes, we're actually using the studio here to record our next podcast. So she's a dynamite and she's inspiring. She, the whole working a full-time job and then working another full-time job for Free the Hounds. And we all look to her and are inspired by her, and it just motivates us to work harder. Not that she makes us; she's very kind, and
She cracks
but
that whip, yeah.
watching the accomplishments of Mel and how her brain is strategizes is one of the things that made me want to start the podcast. I could see all this knowledge and I was like, we've got to get that out and record it, like, and disseminate it to everybody, because otherwise she's just saying the same thing over and over again to so many people.
okay. So taking us back to the phase out in Tasmania. So if Tasmania succeeds and WA follows, the pressure on the industry in Australia is going to be absolutely immense. So why do you think ending greyhound racing is such a critical landmark win for the wider animal rights movement?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I am going to sort of paraphrase Carrie from Grey 2K USA Worldwide. He said it best, I think. He said, this is the only issue globally, if you look across the globe, of the animal rights movement, in which the animal rights community is taking on an animal exploitation industry that is politically powerful, that is economically significant, and is culturally relevant, seeking to abolish it and winning. So all those components coming together, like this is really a David and Goliath type thing. When you're looking at the millions and millions of gambling, and the big lobby groups from the gambling companies, as well as the culture, the regional culture of greyhound racing is very strong, especially in New South Wales and Victoria. It's been a way of life for decades and decades, and the embedding of it in government, in all the different states, is huge. So, but we are pushing that dial so well, and we've got these grassroots, the grassroots activism that is happening across Australia is just getting stronger with every greyhound that is rehomed. And we're looking at groups. It's like the Venn diagram. We've got the vegans that are very supportive. We've got dog lovers that might not necessarily be vegans that are really supportive as well. And then we've got the people that are impacted by gambling harm, that also greyhound racing does tend to be one of the things, quick race, quick buck, that the problem gamblers do really are drawn to. So we've got these different groups in our society that are really backing the phase out of greyhound racing. So being able to team up with as many animal rights movement, the community, as possible, and really coming on board. And the other thing is, it's a win that we can all celebrate, and we really need wins, especially like this. A phase out of greyhound racing, Tasmania, Western Australia, South Australia, whoever might be the first, it's just going to be a matter of time, and it's going to fill everybody's cup that is advocating for it.
So what can our listeners or people watching do to help you? What do you need from them to help push that ban in Western Australia? And then, of course, dominoing across Australia, what can they be doing to help?
Everybody write to your MPs, let them know. I would suggest for across Australia, jump onto the Coalition for the Protection of Greyhounds website. They've got some really good links. They've got all your state by state links that you can check out your own state in there, who the relevant bodies are. And don't wait for the inquiry in WA. Don't wait for whatever is happening. Just let them know. It can be a couple of sentences. Even better is to give them a call and make an appointment and just let them know. The voting really is huge. We've seen what's happened with the Animal Justice Party. There's something coming up there's one coming up in Victoria at the end of the year. So put greyhounds at the forefront of how you vote. The other thing you can do is adopt a greyhound. They really do motivate you, and even if you don't get involved heavily, like myself, just going to the park and telling people what happens to greyhounds and informing them that it does exist. It's not something that was banned years ago, like most people seem to think.
Yeah, well, that's great actions that everyone can take. So thank you for sharing. Was there anything you wanted to tell us about your podcast, other than what you just mentioned when Mel came in?
Yeah, that it was pretty funny actually. I told Mel, oh, we should start a podcast. She was like, okay, then, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. I guess it's
Now I've
my
got to
idea.
do
I
it.
guess I better do something about it. But it's honestly been a great little tool that we use to get the message out. But the podcast isn't just about, banning greyhound racing. We've had all sorts of human interest stories, beautiful stories of greyhound rescue that has seemed to be very difficult, that ends up being very rewarding. We've had politicians on, but we've also had vets on, and a grief loss counsellor on. And we actually have got the next podcast that we're about to record we've got Dr. Jed Goodfellow from the Australian Alliance for Animals going to speak to us about the legislation aspect. And we do have Carrie Teal coming on today as well. So I'll let him know. I'll say, you get onto those Vegan Compass podcast people.
Yeah, most definitely. And say hi to Jed for me, because I know Jed pretty well, and we work out of the same office sometimes. So yeah, he's doing some good work. But I just want to take us into, just before we sort of wind up, into the sort of slightly darker side of things like social media. How do you deal with the online trolls, the breeders, the owners, the trainers, who keep insisting that greyhound racing is safe and highly regulated, and they come on with abusive messages? How are you guys dealing and coping with that?
It's really hard because everybody deals with it in different ways. For myself personally, I try to not get involved too much into that world, but if I see, like, I will often call out. It's usually whataboutisms. What about RSPCA killing all these dogs, 10,000 a year? These types of whataboutisms, or what about the dogs that break their leg down the park, backyard injuries, etc., etc. It's we had a segment on our podcast called Dopey Dick Arguments, and we always we often we'd address one every episode. It's from the RSPCA one to the backyard one to the dogs love to race. That's always a fun one for us. They love to run. They are trained to race, and they love it because they're locked in a kennel all day. So of course they love getting into the van and going to the track where there's other dogs and other people. And they are probably treated kindly there by the handlers, and it's exciting. I know that my bunny, she used to love people in high vis with a high vis vest. So it sort of told me that, high vis meant fun and someone that might give me treats or something like that. So of course they're going to love that, but they don't love suffering and dying. So if they knew that, they wouldn't.
I am going to put dopey dick arguments up there. When we had Sarah from Compassion Creamery on, she talked about shit hobbies. And so I'm going to put dopey dick arguments and shit hobbies now in the same level. I think that's one of the best things I've heard.
I think I'm going to be a regular podcast listener now. That just tipped me over the line. You could just Google it, guys. Oh. All right, so we're starting to wrap up the episode, and of course you mentioned that you share your home with rescued greyhounds. So can you maybe share some final words with us and some appreciation for these beautiful dogs?
Yeah, it's a little, I'm already feeling it in my heart. Losing Bunny not only a few months ago. They are the most amazing. We all know dogs are the most amazing creatures when it comes to unconditional love, and the fact that they are very much in most people's homes. But a wagging tail just fills my heart so much now. And it doesn't even have to be my dogs. I can be driving along and I have to be careful, because if I see a dog walking, wagging its tail, I'm just distracted.
You're a traffic hazard.
Yeah, but just looking into my greyhound's eyes, I see all the greyhounds. And there is a saying that if you love one greyhound, you love them all. And I do. And our committee this year has lost, just our committee members, we've lost 4 of our beloved hounds this year. And each one that we lose and each one that we have in our homes is just strengthening our resolve every day that we're never going to stop fighting for this. And we're getting stronger and we're getting louder, and we are going to end it. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, just absolutely amazing. We're so in awe of what you guys do.
Well, that is just such a wonderful way to wind up this amazing episode and deep dive into the greyhound industry. We can't thank you enough, Jemma, for being on here today. Thank you for everything you do. Mel, if you're listening in the background, thank you for everything you're doing. Your team is amazing, and we just can't be in more admiration of you and all the other groups who are advocating for greyhounds.
Likewise. I mean, greyhounds is just one aspect, but we're all there for the animals. So, feelings mutual.
Oh, thank you. And we'll have to get you back on when greyhound racing has ended, because you'll have so much time on your hands. You'll be on to the next thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next journey once greyhound racing is finally done and dusted. And I think it's not far off. I think, if Western Australia knocks it down, Tasmania knocks it down, it's going to happen across Australia. It's going to start steamrolling across the world. I think your cats have just knocked something over in the background.
Yeah, that was a big crash.
So, folks, on that note, that brings us to the end of another wonderful podcast here. We're just so grateful to have Jemma here with us. And it's goodbye from us until the next episode, and we go and find out what Mackenzie's cats have just done.
Hopefully not a big emergency.
So we'll see you all later. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, please let us know by leaving a comment and share this episode with a friend.